Caitlin Clark had a moment in the preseason matchup against Nigeria that has the entire basketball internet dissecting every angle, every replay, and every reaction from the court. And surprisingly, it had nothing to do with a deep logo 3, a highlight assist, or a game-breaking scoring run. Instead, it came on a whistle, or more accurately, on a whistle that never came. Clark absorbed clear contact on a drive, expected a foul call, and didn't get it. What followed wasn't the usual quiet acceptance fans have become used to seeing from her over the last 2 years. This time she stopped, turned directly toward the official, and made her disagreement unmistakably clear. There was no yelling, no dramatic arm flailing, and no technical foul. She didn't try to put on a show for the crowd or escalate the situation. Fine, but the expression on her face told the entire story. Calm, focused, and firm. This wasn't frustration for the sake of emotion. It was controlled, deliberate communication directed straight at the officiating crew, and that matters because for nearly 2 full seasons at the professional level, Clark has taken an extraordinary amount of physical punishment without public complaint. She has played through contact, absorbed hits, and moved on to the next possession without making a scene. That has been her identity so far. Composed, disciplined, and almost overly accepting of whatever the game throws at her. But in that brief sequence against Nigeria, something shifted. It wasn't explosive and it wasn't dramatic, but it was intentional. It looked like a player drawing a line and signaling that she is no longer willing to silently accept questionable no calls or inconsistent officiating. Welcome to WNBA Pro, where we look beyond the box score and break down the deeper layers of the game that most people miss. Because what Caitlin Clark did in that moment might not show up in the stat sheet, but it could end up being one of the most meaningful turning points of her young professional career. And today, we're gonna break down why this matters, not just for the Indiana Fever, but for how the game around her is going to be officiated moving forward across the entire WNBA.
This is what you gotta do. Now, for all the people that said Caitlin Clark whistle ain't fixed, watch this play right here. Caitlin Clark told the referee to call the first foul, then hit a FU3. Watch this. Look, so the referee ain't call it, right? Boom. Referee on a, so if you guys watch this clip, this referee in the back called the same foul. Caitlin Clark went to the...
To really understand what's happening here, you can't just look at the surface level. On the surface, it's simple. A competitive player reacts to a missed foul call. One that happens in every level of basketball, from local gyms to the NBA and WNBA finals. Frustration, arguing calls, heated exchanges with referees. It's all part of the sport when emotions run high. But this situation needs context, because this isn't just any player. This is Caitlin Clark, a generational talent who has been subjected to an extraordinary level of physical defense since entering the league. We're talking about constant contact, off-ball grabbing, and defensive attention that often goes far beyond normal perimeter pressure. And if you go back and actually revisit her early professional stretch, the pattern becomes even clearer. This is the same player who was hip-checked to the floor in a nationally discussed play involving Kennedy Carter, and yet chose her words carefully afterward, refusing to escalate the situation publicly. This is the same guard who has been face-guarded full court, knocked down repeatedly, and forced to deal with defensive schemes that often push the limits of physicality. Through all of it, her response has been consistent. Get up, reset, and move on without publicly blaming officials or making excuses. Even the toll has been real. The accumulation of contact has led to minor injuries and constant physical wear simply from being the primary target every night she steps on the floor. Even just days before this Nigeria game, there was another dangerous moment. A defender closed out and slid under her landing space on a three-point attempt. Now, one of the most dangerous actions in basketball because it can easily lead to serious ankle injuries. It's the same type of play that has sidelined elite players in the past. And even after that, Clark handled the post-game media calmly and even offered respect toward the officiating crew. That's what makes this recent reaction so interesting. So the question becomes obvious. Why now? Why in a preseason game, of all moments, did she finally choose to confront an official so directly? The answer isn't random. It comes down to timing. And in basketball at this level, timing changes everything.
And it did it again. And so, as you guys can see here, Caitlin Clark is showing her authority. She's showing her authority to these referees now. Like she ain't scared. Look at her. Watch her. Signal. Signal to the ref. Call the foul. Now watch her do the same thing. Boom. Now, as you guys can see here, now Caitlin Clark do get flat because she lead with this arm here. But if you guys see right here, she's completely cutting Caitlin Clark off. That is a foul. And look at Caitlin sold it. And I'm just loving this from Caitlin. I'm loving this.
Just a few days before this viral moment, Caitlin Clark was coming off a strong performance against the Dallas Wings, where she scored 21 points on an efficient 66% shooting. After that game, she stepped in front of the media and publicly commented on the league's updated collective bargaining agreement rules, changes that were introduced specifically to reduce the constant grabbing, holding, and off-ball physicality that had long disrupted the flow of WNBA games. Her tone in that press conference was composed and professional. She didn't criticize anyone. In fact, she spoke positively about the officials and suggested that games were being called more consistently under the new standards. On the surface, it was a routine, respectful media moment from a star player. But if you dig a little deeper into what she said, there's more going on beneath the surface. By praising the stricter officiating environment, she was indirectly acknowledging something important, that in previous seasons, the level of physical defense she faced was far more lenient and often went unpunished. In other words, she wasn't just giving credit to the referees, she was also sending a message that the league has officially changed the standard, and she expects that new standard to actually be enforced. Every grab, every hold, every illegal bump, all of it now falls under a rulebook she believes should be applied consistently. So when she spoke positively about the officials, it wasn't just diplomacy, it also set an expectation. A line had been drawn regarding how the game should now be officiated, and that's where the Nigeria moment fits into the bigger picture. When Clark felt that contact wasn't being called according to that new standard, she didn't ignore it. She reminded the official in real time of the level she believes the game is now supposed to be called at. This wasn't an emotional breakdown or frustration spilling over. It was a franchise player recognizing the shift in rules, understanding her leverage, and clearly communicating where she believes the line is now drawn in today's WNBA.
Or top 10. It's crazy to me that she didn't make top 10. Look at this clutch shot right here. Just unguardable. Kelsey Mitchell, 17 minutes, man. 17 points. Ball. Raven Johnson, man. Raven Johnson looked it pretty damn good, man. I cannot lie. Even the commentators was talking about Raven Johnson, how good she makes the people look. Look at this.
This is where the Candace Parker comparison adds a whole new layer of context to what we're seeing unfold. It's not just a passing comment, it's a serious basketball perspective coming from one of the greatest minds to ever play the game. On her Post Moves podcast, WNBA legend Candace Parker drew a direct line between Caitlin Clark's situation in today's WNBA and Steph Curry's role in the NBA, and she didn't do it lightly. She broke it down from a pure basketball standpoint. Parker explained that if you referee Steph Curry strictly by the rule book, without any star adjustment or hesitation, he becomes extremely difficult to guard cleanly. The reason is simple. Curry never stops moving. He's constantly running off screens, relocating, and forcing defenders into constant motion. And because of that, defenders often resort to grabbing, holding, and bumping just to keep up. In many cases, the only way to slow him down is through physical contact that borders on fouling, because his offensive gravity is that overwhelming. According to Parker, Caitlin Clark operates in that same rare offensive category. She can pull up from logo range without hesitation. She demands full court attention the moment she crosses half court. And because of her elite passing ability, defenses can't just double her without giving up easy opportunities elsewhere. So what ends up happening is similar. Teams try to disrupt her rhythm physically, using contact and pressure as the primary method to contain her. But Parker didn't just diagnose the issue, she also offered a very specific solution. She pointed to Aliyah Boston and suggested a role similar to what Draymond Green plays alongside Steph Curry in Golden State. Her idea was simple, but powerful. Boston has to become the tone setter inside, the physical presence who makes opponents think twice, the player who delivers hard, legal screens to punish defenders chasing Clark around, the one who establishes control in the paint and sends a clear message that cheap contact on the perimeter won't go unanswered inside. When someone like Candace Parker, a Hall of Famer with elite understanding of spacing, physicality, and offensive systems, openly acknowledges that Clark draws a different level of defensive attention. It reinforces what many fans and analysts have been saying for a long time. So when Clark reacted against Nigeria, it wasn't random emotion. It fit into a much bigger basketball conversation. She was responding within that same framework, demanding consistency, pushing back on missed contact, and signaling that she is no longer operating in silence when it comes to how she is officiated. And in that moment, the message to both officials and opponents became very clear. The passive phase is over.
Version of Caitlin, how she's being more aggressive with these referees. She's making sure they're doing their damn job. They're calling these fouls. They're not being fugazi, because there'd be a whole lot of fugaziness going on. But overall, solid game, man. Stephanie White gonna have to fix this whole rebounding situation. Let's check out some of these highlights, man, because I'm very interested to see what they gonna say about these.
It's important to be clear about one thing. This change in body language and approach doesn't mean Caitlin Clark is suddenly turning into a player who argues every possession, chases confrontations with referees, or puts herself in danger of constant technical fouls. That has never been her identity, and it's not how she contributes to winning basketball. Her impact has always come from something much more dangerous for opponents: elite skill, unmatched court vision, and a shooting range that stretches defenses to their breaking point. And if you actually focus on the basketball from the Nigeria preseason game, instead of just the viral officiating clip, you see exactly why she is so difficult to contain when everything is clicking. In limited minutes, she was extremely efficient and in full control of the offense. She finished with 12 points and 4 assists while shooting 75% from the field, all in under 13 minutes of play. There was no need for forced shots, no need for heavy minutes, no need to wear herself down just to dictate the flow of the game. Indiana controlled the night comfortably, finishing with a dominant 105-57 win, and it wasn't just Clark shining in isolation. The entire system functioned at a high level. Kelsey Mitchell thrived in the space created by Clark's gravity, responding with 17 efficient points and looking fully back in rhythm. Aaliyah Boston, stepping into a more central interior role, added 6 assists in just 10 minutes during her preseason debut, showing clear playmaking growth from the post. Michaela Timpson delivered a perfect shooting night, scoring 12 points without missing a single shot. Across the board, Indiana looked connected, deep, and increasingly dangerous as a unit. But even with all the positive performances, one moment still stands above the rest in terms of long-term significance: the officiating exchange involving Clark. That brief sequence didn't show up on the stat sheet, but it may end up shaping the tone of her entire season. It sent a direct message to the officials that she is no longer willing to quietly absorb missed calls without response. It signaled to opposing defenses that she is fully aware of how she is being guarded and will push back when necessary. And just as importantly, it communicated to her own team that she expects a higher level of protection and accountability from both the league and the players around her.
Rebounds. Like, is anybody even gonna ask her? Ty Harris showed up today. She definitely did. I can't even lie, including this tough 4-point play. Watch this play right.
Handoff busted.
Nasty. Watch this. Boom. Watch this play. Boom. Off the dribble. Nasty. Kelsey Mitchell not making top 5.
The new collective bargaining agreement rules were introduced with a clear purpose: to improve the flow, safety, and overall fairness of the game. And based on what we've seen in the preseason, the stricter enforcement has already had a positive impact, especially for fans who want to see cleaner, more fluid offensive basketball. But the real question isn't about the preseason, it's about what happens next, because the true test of any officiating standard always comes when the games actually matter. When standings are on the line, playoff races tighten, and the physical intensity naturally rises. Across almost every professional sport, there's a familiar pattern. When pressure increases, referees tend to allow more contact, swallow whistles, and let physical play slide in ways that completely change the rhythm of the game. That's why this moment is so important for the WNBA. If the league is serious about protecting its biggest stars and continuing to grow its momentum on both a cultural and financial level, then the tighter, by-the-book officiating we've seen in the preseason has to carry over into the regular season without hesitation or inconsistency. Because what we're also witnessing is the evolution of Caitlin Clark in real time. She has moved from a highly scrutinized rookie who quietly endured constant physical pressure to a far more assertive presence who now expects accountability on every possession. The transformation is obvious, not just in her skill, but in her voice and confidence on the floor. A version of Clark that scores with historic efficiency, orchestrates offense like a veteran floor general, and actively holds officials accountable when necessary is arguably the most dangerous version of her we've seen so far. With opening night just days away, the message is clear across the entire league. The front office, the officiating crews, and every opposing team are all on notice. The tone has shifted, the standard has been established, and the era of the silent, passive superstar is officially over. This is WNBA Pro, your home for deep analytical breakdowns of everything happening in the league. All season long, we'll be tracking controversial calls, tactical adjustments, and every major storyline shaping the WNBA. If you're following this journey, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss a single breakdown, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Should Caitlin Clark continue to be vocal with officials to set the tone, or should she let her game and teammates handle the physical response? We read every comment and want your take on this shifting league dynamic. Until next time, stay locked in on the game, and we'll see you in the next breakdown.